Lord of the Mysteries, a time traveler in the Fourth Age. Chapter 151 to 159. Chapter 151, Mother Earth's Head Pat. Klein still suffered from his lack of experience. He was still distracted by the little tricks used by Shao-I, and immersed in the mind-boggling illusion that the all-black eye was not the point was the hidden things, or that there was something wrong with the all-black eye, and carrying it around all the time was problematic in itself. This is the process that the Go-san family must go through if they want to transform. Of course, Klein also thought that perhaps the other party was simply naive and felt that things contaminated by the evil god had no value. He threw it to himself because he was worried about it being contaminated. After all, although this guy was a bit annoying, from his performance, he didn't really want to hurt himself. He is just that kind of guy who is annoying, uncomfortable, disliked and uncomfortable. Not that bad. Klein shook his head, driving the thought out of his mind, and resolved that if possible, they would never meet again. On the other side, the Intis embassy. Shao-I, transformed into Ambassador Luo, was leisurely drinking wine in the room. In his hand, a golden page of paper and a walnut-sized puppet head gleamed faintly. Intis is indeed wealthy and powerful. Shao-I played with the puppet head for a while, and he used his spiritual power to activate the power of this extraordinary item. His appearance slowly changed, jumping back and forth between the elves and the Loan people. In the end, he even wanted to turn into Leodora with some mischievousness. If it really changes, will the true god be able to sense it? Shao-I was eager to try, but the thought of the Storm Lord directly striking the Intis embassy with lightning seemed a bit too. He still considered Leodora's image a little. Shao-I smiled, shadows flowing between his fingers, drawing a complex ritual symbol in the air. This symbol replaced the prayer and directly connected to the gray fog space. Through the gray fog space, a secure long-distance connection was established. A force fell on the golden page in Shao-I's hand, shattering the seal into pure extraordinary characteristics. Who doesn't have an angel behind them? Shao-I consumed the Sequence 6 Notary Beander characteristic in his hand. Only one Sequence 6 Notary trait. Have the Sequence 9 to Sequence 7 traits been split apart? Do the Church of the Eternal Blazing Sun and the Church of the God of Steam and Machinery have to be so ruthless in their dealings? Shao-I felt the extra power helplessly. His physical condition had been greatly improved, and then he only gained an auxiliary type of justice ability and the ability to create a contract. And then it was gone. These two companies, one splits extraordinary characteristics, and the other creates magical items. The utilization rate is really high. It's a bit of a headache to jump through so many promotions like this. Shao-I relied on the fact that the spiritual channel was not closed, so he asked the archangels passing by to help him heal. I also have an Eye of the Wind here. He took out the Beander characteristic of Keelingos that he had seized. This one was also Sequence 6, and it was definitely a set. I ate the wrong characteristic. Let's leave it like this for now. Shao-I hung the Eye of Wind back around his waist and covered it with the robe he was wearing. The Fourth Age. Some time had passed since Shao-I nominally believed in the Mother Earth. His territory expanded normally, occupying a quarter of Intis, and a part of Fasak. No one cares about him. Those churches are still fighting for their lives in the central area of the northern continent near the sea. Even though Shao-I believed that if he developed further, his territory would be comparable to the future kingdom of Feniport, those churches that were hostile to each other still had little interest in Shao-I. In particular, after the believers of the Church of Mother Earth migrated to his territory, no one came here anymore. Originally, the land in the westernmost and northwestern parts of the northern continent was barren, and the northwest region was mostly mountainous. The Antares Mountains even spanned most of the northern continent. In the Fifth Era, it was like the backbone of the Fasak Empire. In this era, ever since Sha'ar used a part of the Antares Mountains to build a huge statue of the Earth Mother, the believers of the Earth Mother have worshipped the entire Antares Mountains as a sacred mountain. Lilith seemed to like the largest mountain range in the northern continent and moved the kingdom of God directly to the mountain where Shah-Ir built the statue. Then Shah-Ir saw that the land in his Constantine kingdom quickly became fertile, and all kinds of strange hybrid creatures were running around, including griffins, turtles with fruit trees on their backs, jellyfish-like creatures that could float on land, and various golems made of stone and metal. When Shur tried to help the Queen of the Elves, Kazanamu and the God of Luck, service in his own territory and spread their faith, it didn't take long for the holy scriptures of the Church of Mother Earth to be revised, and 2 more angels appeared under the throne of Mother Earth. They symbolize natural disasters and luck respectively, and are the angels who serve the Mother Earth, bestowing punishment and gifts. Shah-Ir had never expected that the Church of Mother Earth would be so modern. In order to prevent his territory from being so chaotic, he tried a method to see if he could achieve a perfect linkage of thinking. Shah-Ir took action and directly rewrote the thinking logic of an entire city. In the sea of collective subconsciousness, they planted the seeds of belief in the 6 gods, belief in the fallen god, belief in the god of death, belief in the god of spirits, belief in Amen, belief in Adam, belief in the Medici, belief in the demon king, various beliefs, and also planted the psychological suggestion of not actively praying. If you just have faith but don't pray, there will be no danger, and you may be able to repeatedly brush up on your faith. The experiment was perfect, and the entire city once again became the focus of the world's attention. Everything was fine originally, but after he played around like this, no one cared about the Church of Mother Earth. Isn't it normal for my angel to go crazy occasionally? This is what the Church of Mother Earth thinks. But in order to make his faith more legitimate, Shah made some fine-tuning and implanted a point of view in the believers based on the history compiled by these gods. They do not believe in these gods randomly, but believe in the original creator. The creator is embodied in all things, and these great beings are all part of the creator. They believe in all great beings, and also believe in the original creator who is the source of all great beings. This belief system was logically consistent, and coupled with the whitewashing of history by these gods, sure did not distort people's hearts much. The believers accepted this explanation and gradually began to worship every great being. After all, these great beings were all part of the original creator. They are all different aspects of the original creator, and all are worthy of the worship and faith of believers. Shah-Ir found that the effect was good in the pilot area. Just when he flew up and was about to promote it in the entire Constantine kingdom, his body became heavy and then fell directly back to the ground, and was killed by a big hand that touched his head. The Mother Goddess of Earth looked at him with gentle, curious, and slightly surprised eyes. The soft hand stroked his long black-blue hair, again and again. Chapter 152. Do you long for freedom? Shah-Ir felt the touch on his head, and he wanted to say that this was inappropriate. And the status of the gods, that kind of high and mighty, that kind of transcendence. Don't you want any more? Shah-Ir really wanted to shout, "Mom," to see the other person's reaction, but when he thought about this person, who was the Mother Goddess of the Earth and was already called Mom, at Mother Pathway Sequence 0, he realized that she must have been accustomed to being a mother to others. He thought that if he did so, it would not have any shocking effect at all, so he gave up this unrealistic idea. Never mind before, he is an angel now, he can change to a big account at any time and wake up the original god to play for him, so why should he keep such a low profile? Get your dirty hands off me. As soon as Shah-Ir thought of this, silver-white electric currents surrounded his hair and he attacked the Mother Earth directly. He wanted to try and see if the angels, at least the angels attacking head-on from the first echelon, could break through the Sequence 0 defenses. The Mother Goddess of the Earth was stunned for a moment, shook her head gently, and naturally withdrew her palm. A faint halo was flowing on it, and it seemed that she was not affected at all. Shah-Ir frowned slightly. It felt like his defense was broken, but this guy repaired it directly. His blood recovery speed was too fast. His attack damage was not as high as his automatically recovered blood volume, although this was also because he did not use his full strength. But did this guy really use his full strength? Just as Shah-Ir was about to say something, he suddenly coughed, and pages of mint leaves and night-blooming vanilla grew out of his mouth. These two plants could actually affect mythical creatures. When mixed together, they gave people a very refreshing feeling, a little too refreshing. I just want to give the world a little surprise. Shah-Ir simply shattered the plants and rinsed his mouth. Then he looked helplessly at the Mother Earth who was blocking the door in front of him. It's too difficult. The power of capital is too strong. He was testing it in the pilot area, and before he could even leave, an intercontinental missile came over. If this wasn't the so-called Mother Earth territory, who knows how many intercontinental missiles would have wiped it out. You know, some things can't be joked about. Although I'd like to try it too. The expression of the Mother Earth goddess seemed to contain some regret, but she still shook her head. Her eyes, which were full of maternal love, though gentle and loving, but with a will as firm and unshakable as the earth, formed an extremely sharp contrast with what she said. That's not an anchor for the gods. You're as poison for the gods, a tonic to nourish the divinity within them. The Mother Earth didn't know how this elf came up with this wicked idea, and this guy really dared to implement it. He was afraid that the Mother would be too idle. Is this a small protest? Protesting the revised church scriptures that transformed the two elves from gods into angels serving the Earth Mother. Don't scare me. I am also an angel. I am not ignorant of the secrets of this world. If it's so easy to end things, then there are so many lives in the universe, and these life forms are countless times larger than the planets below us. If they just kowtow to the gods of Earth, will their divinity overwhelm humanity? The gods can reject the faith of believers. Shah-Ir felt a deep sense of lack of freedom. Those damn great beings actually restricted the angels' freedom of belief and freedom of speech. But there are some things you just can't do. You can't even touch it. That's the rule. If you have too much free time, go help the Pope. The Earth Mother didn't care what Shur thought. She walked forward casually, her feet on the ground, as if she was overlooking the entire world. Wherever she walked, all things were thriving. This was the joy of rebirth. Shah-Ir didn't agree, but he still accompanied this person for a walk, which was considered as giving him enough face. The ability of the Mother Earth goddess is quite special. Just by touching her head a few times, Shah-Ir felt that he had gained 500 years of life. Perhaps this is useful for an angel. If faith in the Mother Goddess can bring eternal life, then even the most steadfast fanatic will be shaken. This is what Shah-Ir thinks. The brainwashing method of eternal sun does not count. You should read more about the Church's teachings. The Mother Earth Goddess smiled, and the plants that received the gift quickly went through their life cycle and died. Of course I understand. Every person's life is like a plant. Whatever we eat from Mother Earth, we must return it in its entirety. You can't just take in without giving out, otherwise, Mother will always be worried about you. Shah-Ir casually took out a copy of the Holy Book of the Earth. He had read it through a long time ago, or rather, those who understood the Bible were heretics. The Mother Goddess of the Earth paused slightly. What does it mean that Mother is always thinking about you? It seems that His Holiness the Pope needs help. Shah-Ir let out a soft cry, and his figure turned into lightning and disappeared. Let's talk next time. Come visit me when you have time. After the elf finished speaking, it disappeared at the speed of light, leaving only the sound. The Mother Earth Goddess chuckled, and then continued to walk on the earth at her own pace, carrying the ridges, stepping on the veins, and feeling the rhythm of life. As for Shah-Ir, it is certainly impossible for him to help the Pope of the Church of Mother Earth. After he created a virtual personality to destroy Pope Huo's vegetable garden, he jumped into the sea of fog, found a comfortable place, and wrote The Travels of Grossel. Although he no longer relies on this thing, he can still find the location of the City of Miracles. Honesty Hall. Shah-Ir came here again, and this time, as expected, he alarmed the negative personality of the fantasy dragon. Even though Shah-Ir hadn't done anything, the crazy dragon suddenly woke up from its slumber, as if it had smelled the scent of its own kind. Do you long for freedom? Sha'ir walked to the bronze door with a happy smile. Strictly speaking, the earth at this time is still very strong. Nothing will happen. Roar. No sound was heard, but there was a dragon roar stirring in my heart, carrying with it a strong sense of power. Sha'ir raised his hand and pressed it down, and the storm in his spiritual world suddenly stopped, and everything became calm. According to normal logic, when a visionary dies, all other identities or personalities, except for that special personality, that independent individual, must perish together. Otherwise, the visionary is not considered dead. Your existence, besides the pollution of the Chaos Sea, also proves that there is a layer between you and the true imagination dragon. Now, do you want to compare with me to see who is more professional? Sha'ir snapped his fingers, communicated with the gray fog space, and pulled out the historical projection of the future nightmare dragon, Alisuhad. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. And please support the author by link in description. Chapter 153 Pseudo-Angel. King of Kings. Alisuhad, the nightmare dragon. The pale golden vertical pupils scanned the surrounding environment. Even if it was just a historical projection, the difference between having someone actually operate it and not having someone actually operate it was still very huge. This method of summoning future historical projections is currently limited to a closed, hidden, independent space compared to the historical fog. As long as the historical fog here does not overlap with the real historical fog, it can be summoned. As long as there is no reconciliation, there will be no problem with the account. As long as no bug is detected, there will be no problem with the system and it can operate normally. On the spiritual path, between the two of us, who has gone further? Alisuhad's mouth curled up. He could feel the huge tremors in the spiritual world and the collective subconscious ocean, but this was meaningless. He symbolized the power of a Sequence 1 archangel. Even a negative personality polluted by the sea of chaos had its limits. Outlander demons always need a disguise to legitimize their identities. Alisuhad looked at the bronze door in front of him as a seal, ignored it, and walked in along the connection in his mind. As for the door, seal, I don't know. I just followed the guidance of my heart and didn't see any door. The negative personality of the dragon of imagination was restlessly agitated. It felt a little fearful, a little friendly, a little eager, and a little disgusted. In any case, it was destined to have no way out. The sealed space here was only so big. All its resistance, all the tremors of the soul were smoothed over. It could only watch as the guy wearing the skin of its son approached step by step and put his hands on its eyes. The scarlet eye, filled with madness, gradually regained some rationality. The eye, which was flowing with chaotic light and seemed to carry endless malice, was covered with a layer of light gray mist. The violent aura became somewhat quiet, like a volcano about to erupt, or like the calm before the storm. Fantasies come true, the ancient gods are immortal. The dragon's body began to shrink and gradually transformed into a human form. Audience Path Sequence 1. The fairy tale writer's power of making fantasy come true, after obtaining such a perfect container. This power began to perform fantastic miracles. The body is slender and beautiful, with pale skin or a light golden luster, which seems somewhat insubstantial and unreal. A gray robe woven by spirituality covers the body, and the dragon tail swinging casually behind it disappears. My current state. Alisuhad raised his eyebrows. The brutality in his body continued to grow, but this ancient god was constantly healing his own madness, and the pollution from the Chaos Sea was also restrained to a certain extent through the connection with the gray fog space. The will of the negative personality of the fantasy dragon was suppressed by the more powerful audience. This new fantasy, or rather, the nightmare dragon, feels that his current state is still quite weak. If historical projection is the Sequence 1 experience card, then, suppressing a negative personality and relying on the inherent Chaos Sea pollution is an enhanced version of the experience card. At this time, a certain elf scourge had already slipped into the world in the book. Just kidding, the pollution of the Chaos Sea should be avoided as much as possible. Otherwise, it's no different than having a bounty on the sea. Even a high-sequence person will take a second look at you. Al-Suhad adapted to his new body and simply sorted out the messy memories of this body. He once again ignored the seal of the bronze door and walked out. The city hall was filled with loud congratulations, as if giant dragons were congratulating the return of the former Dragon King. The three epics haven't arrived yet. The Dragon King waved his hand, and all the voices disappeared. I feel that with this body, my control over the City of Miracles has been greatly strengthened. After all, what's the difference between him now and the real resurrected fantasy dragon? Al-Suhad walked to the center of the city hall, raised his head and looked at the dome, on which there was a huge blank mural. Whatever he imagines, he will materialize. This mural corresponds to one of the three powers of the fantasy dragon, and it also contains the divine power left by the fantasy dragon. Al-Suhad Shale raised his hands and began to paint on the mural in the air. By copying what he saw from the spiritual island of this body, stroke by stroke, he slowly carved out an extremely complex mysterious symbol. These mysterious symbols are connected to each other like gears, and finally form a brass eye. Visions come true. The gray mist covering Shah-Ir's left eye dissipated a little, and the eyes flowing with chaotic brilliance stared straight into the brass eyes carved by himself. The ancient dragon language carried a mysterious power, and the entire ancient hall was strangely filled with the sound of heartbeats that should not exist. The aura of the Chaos Sea spread, giving a certain sequence one a certain level of enhancement. The drawn, fictional, imaginary White Tower Pathway Sequence 1, the all-seeing eye feature, fell into Shah-Ir's hands. I am all-knowing. The time traveler confidently contained within his body the Beyander's properties, which he had imagined, a somewhat unstable state, like melting ice cream. As for the universal ascension ceremony, what was that? There was no such thing in the second epic. As for digestion, isn't the mystical knowledge that the time traveler has mastered enough to digest a sequence one all-seeing eye? Shah-Ir feels a little crazy, but it's not a big problem. He can use the audience's abilities to heal him. He's already crazy enough, so what if he gets a little crazier? After the robe contained this fantasy characteristic, this characteristic was like being in a refrigerator in his body. The melting stopped, and the cooling air provided by the Chaos Sea pollution stabilized the state of this fantasy property. Shah-Ir also used this fantasy characteristic to stabilize his state and successfully froze the experience time of the Sequence 1-inch experience card. This backup plan is also for the illusionary dragon, who plans to resurrect and use it to attack Adam at the critical moment. Unfortunately, Shah-Ir has revealed it now. Omniscience is omnipotence. Shah-Ir stretched out his hand and summoned the shadow of a huge, ancient, mottled stone wall clock. As the bell rang, time seemed to come to an end, although it was impossible to completely freeze the present state. But this slow speed is enough. He first pacified and suppressed the crazy side of the fantasy dragon more thoroughly, and then stole the other party's identity, destiny, anchor point, and spirituality, leaving only pure consciousness and spirit to be suppressed, waiting for him to flip through it whenever he needed it, and look up the relevant knowledge known to the ancient god. Then, use the authority of omniscience to understand the current situation and maintain your own balance. Chapter 154 The Issue of Inheritance Rights. The madness of its own destiny, the anchor that maintains rationality, the audience's soothing spirit, the state of omniscience and insight. The erosion and pollution of the Chaos Sea, the secrecy and twisting of the gray fog, all of these have shaped a special existence. Nightmare Dragon. Such an existence that should not exist. This situation is a bit delicate. Shah-Ir felt it and found that although the consequences of being contaminated by the Chaos Sea were generally not very good, it was not to the extent that one would die with just one touch. There were still many beings that were contaminated by the Chaos Sea in history. And this is very subtle. After being polluted by the Chaos Sea, the gray fog space seems to be more sensitive to me. Although the channels are different, it is really smooth and it will respond with a little stimulation. The characteristics of the Sequence 1 Omniscient Eye are imaginary. This power to make fantasy come true is now brought about through the power of the all-seeing eye. The omniscience it brings is omnipotence, simulating a power similar to that of a future body, borrowed from the future. Essentially, they are angel kings scattered from the Chaos Sea and Saphira Castle. However, their upper and lower limits are slightly higher than those of ordinary angel kings, and their strength fluctuates. They are probably between Sequence 1 and Sequence 0. Shah Ayar quickly built a balance of energy around himself through the authority of insight. At the same time, it also has an accurate analysis of its own status, which is a bug, equivalent to a heroic spirit, summoned by the Chaos Sea and Saphira Castle. The various values of this heroic spirit are not so fixed. The spiritual base is the negative personality of the fantasy dragon, which is still relatively helpless. You can fill in the specific values at will. Do I have any obvious shortcomings? The authority of the righteous gods probably can't dispel me, and the justice of the eternal blazing sun is useless. The core is the source. So, can I go out? If I could ever get out into the outside world, truly integrate into the history of this world, and truly leave my mark in the mist of history. Shah Ayar thought about it. He was now wearing the skin of the nightmare dragon. His power could be explained as being contaminated by the source material. This should be recognized by the underlying rules of the world. But in this case, in the future, can the nightmare dragon that was resurrected by the sealed object 008 also share this power in a similar way? If so, because it is power borrowed from the mist of history rather than directly asking for power from the Chaos Sea, perhaps it will not be too deeply contaminated. This is a bit tricky. Shah Ayar simply checked it using his omniscience. Not limited to spiritual searches, various occultations, or echoes from the spiritual world, these can probably all be categorized as omniscience. He had found some clues about high sequence extraordinary characteristics that were temporarily unclaimed. However, in order to obtain them, he needed to make some further preparations, at least to make the gods focus their attention elsewhere. It would be best if he could fight a few more small-scale divine wars. Now, Shah Ayar raised his hand and waved it, and seeds like starlight lit up in various places in the city hall. These were emotions, ancient spiritual imprints, from the former fantasy dragon. Now, some transformations need to be done to erase some of the backhands of this place and turn it into the shape of a nightmare dragon. Can I join the Tao? As Shah Ayar was updating the remaining spiritual imprint of the fantasy dragon, a question suddenly arose in his heart. The potion flow is the mainstream extraordinary path in the three continents of North, South and East. This is also the path recorded on the blasphemous stone tablet. However, in the Western continent, due to the limited number of high-sequence Beyonder traits, Beyonders there considered the potion stream to be of the lowest order. The mainstream Beyonder path was a Shou Zhuan system. To put it simply, the leaders of the various schools in the Western continent endured the erosion and pollution of the source essence themselves, and bestowed the stolen power on their disciples. There is no direct contact between the ascetic and the source material, but there is an extra layer of checkpoint to ensure a certain degree of safety. After the death of these Hidao masters, their spirits will also be assimilated with the source essence. Although it is difficult to be liberated, as long as the accumulated spiritual imprints are large enough, it will be easier for the next Hidao master to integrate them to a certain extent. Mobilize the power of the entire source. The nightmare dragon has no extraordinary characteristics in essence, but he is able to try to merge with the Tao. No. If I merge with the Tao, relying on this little connection with the gray fog, I won't be able to withstand the invasion of the Chaos Sea. I have no right to inherit the Chaos Sea, and I don't have a legitimate claim to the throne. The Chaos Sea will not accept it. The Chaos Sea certainly cannot accept a fool as God. What if I kill Adam and become a dreamer? No, that Howley is a 2+1 angel king, and the fallen god of this period is still the giant true God. What if I recover sealed object 008? No. If I consume this Beyander characteristic that originally belongs to the nightmare dragon, the spirit and consciousness of the negative personality of the fantasy dragon that I am currently suppressing will be strengthened, competing with me for dominance of my body, which will only bring trouble to myself. Then the answer is clear. Shah-Ira reached out towards the void, and the void's brass-colored eyes opened, staring at the card that was glowing with a faint luster. This is a historical projection, coming from the universal blasphemy card given by the hidden sage. There's still time. All, establish, the Moss ascetic order. Sure, pointed towards the blasphemous card, and separated out an identity, which contained the hermit, blasphemous card. The uniqueness of the hermit, is this difficult to find? If you search blindly, it will be difficult, but with this blasphemous card that contains the breath of the hermit, the necessary connections will naturally be made between the high-level characters, and it is only a matter of time to find the uniqueness of the hermit that has not been accommodated. This clone's fate was directly split and thrown out of the kingdom of miracles. After he locked the approximate location of uniqueness, the kingdom of illusion naturally descended. The other side, a certain elf scourge, poked his head out from the sea of fog. He sincerely felt that breathing was so sweet. I'd better go back and help the Pope of the Church of Mother Earth to grow vegetables. The elf decided to do it with all his heart. What is he waiting for? As long as the nightmare dragon is not exposed, he can cling to the Mother Earth's thigh and survive until the Black Emperor's time. Shah-Ira now feels somewhat regretful. Why did he need to know so many historical truths? Maybe it's more manipulable, it's really giving yourself more strength. After a while, we will release all the elves that are not in the storm path, and then after a few more years, we will release the elves in the storm path as well. I should also learn to take the initiative to help the Mother Earth more. I am her favored one, so I should help her suppress the vampires. Chapter 155 The Big World. The Fifth Era. Shah-Ira felt that strong spirit of sacrifice. That would be contact with the source material, such a dangerous thing. However, his own historical projection, with its majestic aura, did not flinch and protected and rescued the contaminated, imagination dragon. No wonder it was recognized by the gray mist space. This spirit of sacrifice, this humanitarianism at all costs, was truly moving. That's true, but I lack the extraordinary characteristics of the time worm. Shah-Ira wanted to skip the progress bar. If only the ancestor of Pale's Zoroast could grow up earlier and show his head. If he could find the characteristics of the time worm, he would probably be able to skip the progress bar. Exploring the underground buildings of William Street. This task still appeared. But it doesn't matter. Klein is injured now and he doesn't have the time and energy to complete this task. Shah-Ira confirmed the news through certain channels, and he was a little confused. Go. Or not. It feels like Schrödinger's cat. Until the box is opened, it is uncertain whether the cat is dead or alive. If the box is opened and there is something dead inside, it's fine, but what if it is empty? This state of mutual influence once made Shah-Ira not want to read history books except for some personal biographies of Russell. Sometimes, he even didn't want to read Russell's diary. Boom, boom, boom. There was a gentle knock on the door. Come in. Shah-Ira looked outside the door, his shadow extended over, opened the door, and then retracted. The person who came was a beautiful girl with blonde hair, Megos from Tingen City. You're a little early. My mother wants to observe for a while before considering whether to support my career. Shah-Ira said helplessly. It's not that he can't afford the money, but the source of the money is hard to explain. Why did he donate all the bounty he got for Admiral Hurricane's head to the church? The night watchman of the Church of Night is on leave and has only a basic salary to earn. However, he wants to make some business investments to prove himself and to raise funds. By the way, he played the role of a hermit, so he took some private work that did not violate church regulations. It makes sense, right? At this time, it was discovered that the former Nighthawk Klein, who had been dead, was not dead. So all kinds of attempts were made to find out the truth, to see whether he was possessed by the undead, or was contaminated, or was being used by someone. This is also reasonable, right? Klein, you are doomed to suffer a loss. With this in mind, Shah-Ir invited Megos, since we're in Backland, let's have some fun for a couple of days. Even if Mother is still hesitant, I won't give up my plan. I'll borrow some money from a few friends, add my own savings, and rent a cheap small factory in the East District. I'll hire some people from that newly opened service company, and this small company will be up and running straight away. The business license will be very easy to get. I'm not really in a hurry. Megos felt a little uncomfortable. She really wasn't here to urge Shah-Ir, she just hadn't seen him for a while and missed him a little. I'm not in a hurry, but there's no need to drag it out. As Shah-Ir spoke, he suddenly thought of something. He reached out and touched Megos's lower abdomen. It felt a little cold. The characteristics of the descendants of the god of death that had originally accumulated there had been slowly absorbed. Have you become a Beander? At least it's mid-series. I don't know. Megos was a little panicked. She didn't know how to explain it. One day she had a stomachache and thought that relatives had come. After enduring it for a while, she could see the ghost again at night. This almost made her think that she was under some vicious curse. Maybe it can only be called luck. Shah-Ir imitated Furza's experience and made up a set of adventures for Megos. This is enough to fool people, and it won't be exposed anyway. By the way, let the maid take you to familiarize yourself with the environment here. I want to rest for a while. Shah-Ir glanced at the wall clock. It was 2:54. After he finished brainwashing, he began to order them to leave. On Klein's side, he was holding today's unread newspapers, including the Tussock Times, the Backland Post, and the Backland Morning Post. He was supposed to watch this at breakfast, but since it was his first serious injury, he stayed in bed. Registration for the government employee exam has begun and all exams are expected to be completed within 4 months. The king and the prime minister seemed supportive. Prince Edisic publicly called for environmental protection and to give the people of Loan a sunny and bright Backland. Klein glanced at it and didn't take it seriously. There are so many appeals in the newspapers every day, most of which are political showmanship and fame-seeking. He finished reading the newspaper, ate something simple, and then began to change the dressing on his wound in an unskilled manner. Of course, these Nighthawks had been trained, but Klein had never used them before. This was his first real injury, not counting the time he woke up and saw a hole in his head. The battles between Beyonders are always filled with intrigue and deception, and even high-sequence players don't necessarily win against low-sequence players. Because of the inevitable pain when changing the dressing, Klein devised a series of personal philosophies to divert his attention. On the newspaper spread out next to it, the lines of content were clearly visible. The House of Commons and the House of Lords agreed to establish a commission to investigate air pollution in the kingdom. The position of Alkali Industry Inspector was approved to monitor factories producing acids and alkalis to minimize their pollution levels. The calls for establishing relevant labor laws are growing louder, but the House of Commons and the House of Lords have been unable to reach a consensus and give a clear response. Above the gray fog, Klein threw the all-black eye on it. Now that he had it, he couldn't help but play with it. After playing with it twice, he mastered how to use it. New member, World is online, and the fool, Clue personally leads the puppet show. Time passes, 3 p.m. Shah-Ir appeared in the gray fog space, and Miss Justice's cheerful voice rang in his ears. Good afternoon, Mr. Fool, good afternoon, Mr. Angel. Audrey was about to share her experience when her attention was drawn to the newcomer sitting at the very bottom. It was a strange man with a hood. Shah-Ir kindly reminded, "You're new here, right? The fog here itself has a hidden effect, like appearance and voice. You wear a hood, which makes it look very deliberate." Shah-Ir's curiosity faded when he saw the man remove his hood, revealing the mass-produced, male model, face displayed on an assembly line in a shopping mall. He shouldn't have let the man remove his hood. This cheap-looking mannequin diminished the Tarot Club's prestige. Haha, This is just my habit, just like you wearing the clergy robes of the Church of Mother Earth. The world laughed hoarsely. The fools at the top all looked at the angel. Where did you get those clothes? Chapter 156 Prophecy. The clothes of the Mother Earth Church are colorful and really eye-catching. Although Klein, Audrey, and Alger all knew that Orthodox Church clergymen did not have these things on their robes. It is disrespectful to modify the robes of clergymen of other churches without authorization, but this is the Tarot Club after all. As long as it is not too excessive, these Tarot Club members have become accustomed to these little hobbies of angels. Although it has been changed beyond recognition, it is indeed very beautiful. Newcomer, clothes are just a form, a mood. Angel said with a slightly light voice. This attitude made Mr. Fool frown slightly. What was he doing? Suppressing the newcomer in front of me. Then it seems that you have quite a variety of moods. World laughed. How could he be bullied at his own party? I heard from Mr. Fool that we can exchange information, issue commissions, and collect materials here, right? World gets straight to the point. If you can collect a certain number of Russell's diaries, you will feel Mr. Fool's generosity, and Mr. Hanged Man will demonstrate it to you. As Shah finished speaking, Alger also bowed to the Fool. He quickly wrote out a batch of Russell's diaries and handed them to the Fool. He did not have any conversation with the world throughout the whole process. Alger was of course aware that as time passed, the number of members joining the Tarot Club would gradually increase. To ensure his own position, he would of course stand on the same front as the other two original members. Little Sun was simple by nature and possessed special value, so of course he should be treated specially. As for this world, haha, really not familiar with it. Justice Audrey sensed this subtle act of exclusion or intimidation. She blinked and chose to remain silent. After all, Mr. Angel and Mr. Hanged Man were both very restrained, allowing Mr. World to familiarize himself with the Tarot Club's procedures earlier and better integrate into the club. Derek didn't feel anything was wrong. He was just a little confused. Why was Mr. World sitting so far away from them? There are so many empty seats here, why did you sit directly opposite? In the end, justice prevails, the lady explained. Mr. World, please be patient. It's Mr. Fool's reading time now. So, the Fool just watched his alt being ostracized. The Fool didn't say anything, and these guys began to tacitly beat the newcomer. From the perspective of the world, Angel, do your best. Mr. Fool is very generous. The Hanged Man, who is this? I don't know him and haven't seen him. Justice, please be patient, now is not the time for you to ask questions. Son, why is his seat so far back? Open black lens bracket confused close black lens bracket. With so few of us, you still want to play office politics. The world felt light covering his face. He had been sitting at the very end to correspond with the Fool, which had a good meaning, symbolizing the transition from the Fool to the world. It was normal for his trumpet to be in a special position. As a result, these guys just formed a group. If the Fool hadn't been there, the world doubted whether the Angel would actually take action and give him a real show of force. If I had known this earlier, why would I be so special? Wouldn't it be better for me to just sit quietly next to the Little Sun? Klein felt a little regretful, but it was too late. He could only shift his attention to the Russell diary in his hand. Miss Justice, who had been observing the world the entire time, noticed that the world didn't make any physical movements. It seemed to have a stern face. Even when being subtly excluded, it remained calm. This made her think, this person is either an experienced and aloof Beander, or a dangerous individual who is accustomed to hiding his true intentions, or perhaps both. Audrey became a little more vigilant. Klein has already started reading Russell's diary. On February 9th, I had my third child. I gave him the sequence 5 feet Astromancer, Beander characteristic, naturally capable of performing various magical feats. This feeling of winning at the starting line makes me, as a father, a little envious. I skipped the vulnerable period before the artisan path and gained powerful combat effectiveness. Zeratul secretly came to congratulate me, saying that the child was a lovely angel. I was very happy, but when I asked him what my child had accomplished, the master of divination had a subtle expression. He actually told me the fate of my 3 children directly. My eldest son will die. My eldest daughter will dislike me. My second son will become a perfect man. Haha, haha, I always feel like they're not good words. Bullshit fate, I don't believe in fate. Seeing this, Klein recalled the life of the great emperor in history and fell silent. The emperor may have believed it, or he may not have, but the fateful outcome still makes people feel helpless. Even if we knew in advance, these things still happened in the end. At least the emperor's second son has a good reputation. In Intis, he became a saint. Klein felt that the emperor could rest in peace in his grave. Turn over a diary page. Damn it. I'm going to send this thief to the gallows sooner or later. Bebe too, how could she trust that guy? My little angel, she must have been deceived. How could she allow those flea-like, parasite-like creatures to live in her hair? Ah, a long, crooked, illegible graffiti. Is he forcing me to submit? Does he know that he's about to face a real emperor? The handwriting in this simple diary is very difficult to recognize, and it seems that the writer was very excited at the time. Klein frowned as he read the contents. This page looked like something Russell had written later. Was this about something before the emperor's coronation? What had provoked the emperor? If this is also a reason for the emperor's coronation, then the other party may have a very high status in Intis, so high that even the emperor did not ascend the throne. To the extent that it cannot be achieved even under the system of the Republic. Klein tried to find his target through some historical data, but the emperor had killed so many people in his later years that he could not. He really couldn't analyze anything. There were at least hundreds of possible targets, and he hadn't studied that period of history well. Did the emperor and his daughter really break up later? Klein looked at the content above. It was the emperor's confession when he received the prophecy. It's hard for me to believe, my dear. Bernadette, who was kind, loved her brother, adored her father, and loved her mother, hated me, loathed me, and betrayed me. Why on earth was this? Did I do something excessive? Perhaps she had a crush on someone I wasn't happy with, and I killed that brat. No, Russell, forget about it. I believe that whenever I'm willing to sit down and have a good talk with my lovely daughter, she will definitely support and understand me. She has always been so sensible. Chapter 157 The Initial Mistake. The emperor did not take direct action and was willing to write a diary to curse his mother, which shows that the situation can still be controlled. Klein silently shed a bitter tear for the emperor. He continued to read, and the content of the diary was very simple. It's nothing more than Florin of the Sorin family once again wanting Russell to be his subordinate. But he was wrong about one thing. A traveler, like Russell, could accept a down-and-out noble lady as his superior, and could accept a mission from a real being standing at the top of the world. But this second-generation rich man, who is willing to take advantage of others and stab them in the back, has no respect for the wise and humble, and does not visit them 3 times, and still wants to deceive the rebellious time traveler, who has nowhere to go. Klein probably had a relatively good understanding of Russell's character. And based on the glorious history of the Sorin family, how had this family, as nobles in the 4th Age and royals in the 5th Age, been overthrown by Emperor Russell? The sealed artifact was lost. A high sequence expert died. This attracted the attention of ambitious individuals. He continued reading, and the subsequent content was probably about Emperor Russell starting a series of social reforms in order to gain the support of the Eternal Sun Church and please the Eternal Sun Church, which was the god of contract and the guardian of commerce. The title of Caesar should have been tacitly approved by the 2 churches. Although, the assassination of the emperor was probably tacitly approved by the 2 churches again. August 11th, Florent, that stinking idiot is showing off again. He actually said he was the last hope of this generation of the Sorin family to become a high sequence because he looked like his great-great-grandfather. How could he have the nerve to brag like that? Isn't the subtext of his words to say that the Soren family hasn't had a high sequence for several generations? Otherwise, why didn't he say that he looks more like his father and grandfather? Poof. Klein couldn't help but laugh when he saw this. The Emperor's observation skills were still so sharp. But what the Emperor said does make sense. The great-great-grandfather is at least 4 generations away, right? No high sequence characters in 4 generations. The Sauron family has fallen into such decline. Is this Florin still so arrogant? Klein certainly knew that high sequence characteristics carried the spiritual imprint of the high sequence Beyonders during their lifetime, and that their direct descendants were more adaptable accordingly. The 4th generation is at least 200 years. At that time, there seemed to be quite a few duchies and counties in the northern continent, so hunters had no worries about prey. And what the Emperor said makes sense. For 4 generations, the royal family has occupied so many resources, with enough extraordinary materials and acting methods. Why can't they be promoted? Swish, swish, flip through a few pages. January 1st, it's a new year. I've just finished making my first blasphemous card. It's a good start. I'm not lacking in the knowledge to create these cards. I know all of this. Ha ha ha, I just happen to know it all. I'll hide the ultimate secrets of the divine path that I possess within different blasphemous cards. These, blasphemous cards, will all possess the properties of anti-divination and anti-prophecy. Apart from the ones reserved for my children, the rest will be obtained by those who are destined to receive them. If this fails, this is my children's last resort. Anyone who gets the card of blasphemy will owe me a favor. Alas, I'm still helping others, but it's also mutually beneficial. If you don't leave me a way to live, then I can only choose something that none of us want to see. I will completely overturn the existing order and let the world see the truth of this world. Let everyone feel this utter despair together. I have always been a man of revenge. If I die, then our grudge will be settled. If anyone wants to implicate my child, let the world be plunged into chaos. After I die, even if there is a flood, God's high and mighty, choose to acquiesce to all this, or die together. Oh, if it really comes to that, I don't know how many people will still support me, but I have no choice but to do this. I still can't forget what was written on the blasphemous slate. The so-called gods are the pinnacle of the order. They are not that high and mighty. Mortals can also climb to their level, not just look up to them. This is indeed blasphemy against the gods. Each path can only have one sequence 0, because authority is unique and cannot be shared, and thus only one deity can be born. It's a pity that I chose the wrong path from the beginning. If I had more time, I might have had another chance, but now it's too late. I lost the most crucial thing at the very beginning. I have completely become Russell Gustav. I can no longer touch that gray fog. The chill is coming. Klein felt an inexplicable chill all over his body. The contents of these diaries were truly too horrifying. What did Emperor Russell's last words mean? Why can't the Emperor access the gray fog space? Is it too late? Is the only way to do it is to travel back to the beginning? What does it mean to completely become Russell Gustav? Joe Mingrui forced a smile. Was the Emperor reminding him not to forget his roots? The Emperor must be joking. The fool took a deep breath and tried to shift his attention elsewhere. After sequence 1, there is sequence 0, which is the gods. As long as you take the magic potion, master the acting method, and perform the Ascension ceremony, mortals can also become gods. The authority is unique, so what is the material of the sequence 0 potion? Does it also have extraordinary characteristics? Or is the main material simply the divinity, blood, and body of the true God? If you eat this directly, I'm afraid the fallen gods will be resurrected directly in your body. Eating while digesting. Performing rituals to help digest the spiritual imprint of the gods. This means there should be 22 gods. Does the Emperor regret not choosing a path that does not give birth to gods? There are gods in the craftsman path. Fortune teller, apprentice, and thief don't have sequence 0 yet. What did the Emperor mean when he said there was still a chance? Another way. Klein was feeling a little irritated, but as the master of the gray fog space, he clearly sensed the abnormality in the others waiting. He had wasted too much time on this page of the diary. No matter what, he at least has this gray fog space, which is something that even the high-sequence emperors have been talking about all the time. Klein composed himself and smiled at Miss Justice. Ms. Justice, you did a great job in dealing with Bakerland within a week. The fool knocked on the bronze table and glanced at the angel. When it comes to receiving missions, you're always the most enthusiastic, making Miss Justice feel embarrassed to compete with you. But when it's your turn to carry out a mission, you suddenly say you have something to do and may not be able to complete it. Is this my fault? You were rejected by Marich once, and you came to my industry to seek temporary refuge. How could I not help you? Mr. Angel was helpless. Chapter 158 Contract and Command Spell. Don't blame me for something urgent, it's your fault. Mr. Angel looked at Mr. Fool apologetically and said, I didn't expect to suddenly encounter the opportunity to advance to the next sequence. I originally wanted to get promoted and strengthen myself before taking action, but Miss Justice helped us solve this problem. You got promoted again. The fool's face turned bitter. At this moment, he even hoped that something was really wrong with the angel. How long had it been since Angel's last promotion? A month. Why was she so anxious? Alger, the hanged man, also looked at the angel in surprise. How did he get promoted? He has been at Sequence 7 for almost 2 months, and there is still no sign of being promoted to Sequence 6. And Justice acted too quickly. It was over while he was still at sea. Mr. Angel, congratulations. Audrey congratulated with a smile. The blonde girl was still in a good mood. She felt that there was nothing wrong with this division of labor. She didn't do anything, just asked Furs and Zio to help issue a commission, and the specific assassination was done by Mr. A. You must have spent a lot of money on hiring an assassin. Even though Mr. Fool will reward you, I still want to make amends a little. As Shah Iyer spoke, he extended his hand, and brilliant golden light intertwined from his palm. These rays gathered together and cast a simple spell-like spell, transform into paper. Soon, 3 contracts emitting a faint sacred aura were completed. This is called a fair contract. Once signed, an invisible bond is formed. Even a Sequence 5 cannot violate it. Even if a Sequence 4 demigod wants to forcibly break the contract, they will have to pay a heavy price. Your family might be able to use them. There are 3 of them. You can use them for fun or just to exchange for some pocket money. It's up to you. Shah Iyer handed the 3 contracts in his hand to Audrey beside him. Compensation was just an excuse, he mainly wanted to try out his new skills. This move of the angel gave everyone present a little shock. Rubbing the contract of justice with his hands. I'm afraid this can't be mass-produced directly. A contract that can bind a demigod. Can this be mass-produced? Audrey reached out to take the contracts. She wanted to refuse them at first, but seeing the relaxed look on the angel's face and the nonchalant tone in his words, she knew that these were not precious things to Mr. Angel, so she accepted the small gift. Mr. Angel, can this really bind a demigod? Audrey was still a little bit incredulous. It was surprising enough that this contract could bind a Sequence 5, let alone a demigod. If the demigod is willing to cooperate and sit down to sign a contract, then certain restrictions can be imposed. I haven't tried it specifically, so I don't know its exact value. You can play with it yourself. Shah Iyer didn't know either, he had never studied it, and he never really believed in contracts. That's pretty good. Audrey touched the lines of the justice contract with joy. The Hall family could definitely use this kind of fair contract. They have many hired extraordinary people in their family. Although there are no Sequence 5 extraordinary people among them, this does not mean that this kind of contract is useless. It can be collected as a kind of heritage. Angels are the path of the sun. Alger didn't seem to agree. He looked at the 2 people who were completely unaware of their value and added. Mr. Angel, Ms. Justice, there are many levels of justice contracts. This kind of contract that can have a certain impact on a demigod is already a very rare treasure. There's no unified standard for the specific price. If you meet someone who needs it, you can easily sell it for a high price. Alger said this, looking at the angel in confusion. How could such a high-level contract be produced by hand, and three at once? Could this be an ordinary notary? Thank you very much for your answer, but I have no intention of selling it. Audrey responded with a smile. Of course she didn't plan to sell them. She would keep one for herself and give the remaining two to Earl Hall. The generous Earl Hall would certainly not be stingy in giving his precious daughter a little reward, right? Oh, right. Shaw Iyer suddenly remembered something. He took a card back from Miss Justice and added some mystical symbols on it. These dark red symbols quickly disappeared, and the overall look was no different from before. Audrey looked at the symbols curiously, and the others couldn't understand what Mr. Angel was doing. Well, this is just a small attempt, it may not be useful. I've modified this contract a little. It doesn't necessarily require a signature. A drop of blood or something like that might work just as well. Shaw Iyer took advantage of the cover of the gray fog and spoke such infernal words openly. The entire Tarot Club was silent for a moment. Although the contract must be authenticated with real name, there is still a certain omniscient who combines contract with curse. Before Shaw created the contract, he just wanted to make a good contract, but he suddenly realized that there was room for improvement. The fool fell silent as he looked at the golden contract of justice. Isn't this the devil's contract? You can't unilaterally tear up your contract, can you? Alger was also shocked. He even considered buying one. Mr. Angel, this is truly a special gift. Audrey honestly placed this page of the cursed contract neatly with the other two pages of the justice contract. Although this kind of tool is somewhat unethical, it shouldn't be a big deal as long as it's not used, right? Audrey persuaded herself in this way. She decided to keep the contract to prevent Earl Hall from using it to cheat others after getting it. It was definitely not because she was reluctant to part with it. She just felt that something so dangerous should not be leaked out. Because I added the element of curse, the contract isn't as effective. It will change from a long-term contract to a short-term command. You can directly command the target, as long as you have their blood, flesh, hair, or other mediums. Because its essence is a contract, you can also curse yourself, impose an order on yourself, and have an enforceable effect. You can figure out how to use it yourself. After all, I made it on the spur of the moment. Shaw Iyer gave a brief description. After all, this was just a semi-finished product, and its research value and practical value were not high. It's just a brief order, not a long-term binding contract. The atmosphere of the Tarot Club returned to normal. Alger felt that the world had returned to a state he could understand. Mr. Fool once again gave up the idea of disbanding the group. Justice Audrey also relaxed. If it wasn't a contract, it would be useless to Earl Hall. She decided to take it for herself. After all, curses sound dangerous and not suitable for ordinary people. Chapter 159, Deep in Debt. The forced contract of Angel is eye-catching enough. This made even an honest child like Xiao Taiyang have some ideas. After all, as long as the blood of a Sequence 5 Beander is collected, one can forcibly contract a Sequence 5 Beander. This does sound a bit incredible, but if it is just a short-term order, then these Tarot Club members can still accept it. Mr. Angel, how much is this contract? Alger asked first. He felt that if this thing was used properly, it would definitely be able to accomplish an extreme counterattack. A word of advice, this contract I casually made doesn't have such a good effect. Because I haven't tried it myself, I don't know what price to sell it for. Shaw Iyer was indeed unsure. He didn't know the effect of this ability. There were curses and contracts in this world, but there were no command spells. The effects of command spells involved many aspects, and the specific level of effect depended on the user. According to my speculation, there's no problem influencing Sequence 6 Beyonders. Angel does have this confidence. If he changes his account to create a command spell, it may even directly disrupt the balance of the game. This kind of thing with huge potential still needs continuous improvement and research, and may be of great use in the future. The price of this alternative contract is at least several hundred gold pounds. Alger was also unsure about the price, so he temporarily gave up the idea of buying it because the money was quite a bit. With a little more, he could buy a second-tier magical item. Magical items can be used for a long time, while this kind of contract can only be used once. After these people finished chatting, the fool suddenly remembered that this was not right. He had not yet asked Miss Justice what reward she wanted. "Miss Justice, what reward do you want?" Mr. Fool wasn't sure what kind of reward Miss Justice wanted, so he could only pray silently in his heart. Audrey thought about it. Little Son could help with the Sequence 7 Psychologist's potion formula, but Mr. Fool might not be able to get the corresponding potion ingredients in his current state. So, Mr. Fool, you've spent quite a while reading Russell's diary this time. I'm a little curious. Of course, if this involves something secretive, I'll change my request. In the end, Audrey couldn't control her curiosity. Fortunately, at least it's not a request that I can't handle. Praise the goddess. Klein breathed a sigh of relief, but soon he had a headache. How should he explain these things to Miss Justice? He should at least say something valuable. The fool thought for a moment, then blocked out the others and faced Miss Justice alone. This diary entry does contain some secrets. But I can't tell you too much. I can only tell you that this involves the secrets of the gods. I will have my followers give you some extra compensation later. Klein didn't intend to shirk Miss Justice's payment, he just needed some time to prepare, and he had made a promise. On the other side, Audrey has already hit the rock machine. The secret of the gods. What a niche word this is. How did Emperor Russell know this? He seems to be called the Son of Steam. Miss Justice. The fool asks again. Sorry, Mr. Fool, I overstepped my bounds. Thank you for your answer. As for the reward, it doesn't matter what it is. Your followers don't need to worry. Audrey came to her senses. She no longer cared about asking for any reward. What she wanted most was to share this shocking news with Mr. Angel beside her. Unfortunately, Mr. Fool probably wouldn't agree, and she couldn't continue to ask for more. The fool nodded and ended the private chat mode. The crisis was temporarily averted. The Tarot Club will proceed to the transaction stage. Everyone started to make deals. I want to know the formula for the Diviner's Path Sequence 7 potion. The world's very humble in making its demands. He had a chance. He only needed to kill the high sequence fortune teller and then divine the formula in the gray fog space. However, when he came to his senses, the other party's body had been swept away and he had never seen it again. The angel's lips curled up slightly when he heard the fool's words. The other three members looked at each other. None of them knew the potion formula of the fortune teller's path. Perhaps you can seek help from the Secret Order or the Church of Evernight. Alger chuckled. He had no intention of helping, and he was still instinctively averse to newcomers. Justice, and the sun are certainly even less clear. The world can only look to the angel, which is his only hope at the moment. I'll ask for you. The angel gave an ambiguous answer. As for who to ask, the Secret Order, the Church of Night, or something else, he didn't say. Then I'll leave it to you. The world nodded. Mr. Angel really did have a lot of connections. Everyone repeated their needs. The angel looked at Little Sun and asked, have you ever heard of the Scarecrow, or the Herd Watcher? Because he didn't eat Mr. A at that time, Sha'ir could only collect extraordinary materials on his own to prepare for the promotion. The latter looks like a monkey. Sha'ir also simply concretized two rough patterns. Mr. Angel, I know where these two extraordinary creatures are, but my current strength is not enough to join the corresponding expedition team. The area where these two creatures appear is also quite dangerous. Although Little Sun wanted to help, even if he became a Sequence 8, he couldn't join such a high-level expedition team. It's okay. You can go back and confirm the approximate location later. I'll find a way to solve it myself. Shah Iyer was not worried. At most, he could let the resentful spirit go to Silver City on his behalf. Okay, Mr. Angel. Derek nodded subconsciously before realizing the problem. Mr. Angel, do you mean to say that you can help little son solve the problem? Audrey was also shocked. That was Silver City, a place they couldn't even find. If it really doesn't work, I beg Mr. Fool to send my spirit body over there. I only need to bring a few suitable sealing objects and avoid encountering demigods. There is almost no danger. Shah Iyer said calmly. The notary's spirit carries 2 precious second-level seals, the Crimson Moon Crown and the Puppet Head. It's very safe, as long as we don't consider the conflict issue of the notary accommodating the Crimson Moon Corona, but he is a hermit at heart, so it's not a big problem. As long as you don't encounter a demigod, there is almost no danger. Klein's mouth twitched. A few suitable sealing objects. How many good things do you have? Alger was also helpless. It sounded like they were on the same level as pirate generals, or even the top admirals. Why does the word, demigod, sound like a joke to you? For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.